Hello language learners. There are many different kinds of language learning resources on the market, and most of them are pretty similar to each other. Use them to learn language, whatever that means. However, in this video, I want to talk about HiNative, which is an actually completely unique language learning app that doesn't seem to really exist anywhere else. The concept behind it is very original, so I wanted to share this app with you in case you've never heard of it, as well as how to use it to your advantage. A little bit of a background, HiNative has been around for a few years. However, the people behind HiNative weren't always doing that. Before, like several years ago, they actually ran a different kind of language learning resource called Lang8. Nowadays, we have things like LangCorrect and Lingo Hackers, link below in the description talking more about those. But Lang8 used to be a really great resource to get your writing practice in, and as far as I know, it used to be the only one of its kind. So when the people behind HiNative kind of gave up on Lang8 and just kind of stopped and moved on to HiNative, I was kind of upset, I'm not gonna lie. So I've heard of HiNative before, but up until a couple months ago, I never really gave it the time of day. I held a grudge, what can I say? But since using HiNative, obviously, of course, I'm gonna share it with you, but I've really come to see how it can be really helpful, not so much with languages themselves, but things like, nuances in language and cultural facts and stuff like that. I'll walk you through and we'll see what it's all about. But believe me when I say that this is a very unique language learning app that I think is a really important tool in all of our language learning strategies. So here we have my front page of HiNative. This is also an app, and I think it's primarily an app. From the front page, it doesn't really seem to be a whole lot. There's, somebody learning Chinese and Russian, which doesn't really apply to me. But when you do start up your HiNative account, you do let HiNative know what languages what languages you're studying, because that is a really helpful tool to use. So if we go to this tab right here, where it says questions about English US, you click this little drop down. And here are the options that are pertinent to me in my language learning. So I've already told HiNative that I speak American English natively, and I'm learning Spanish from Spain and French from France. It can be really important depending on your goals for your language. It could matter to you if you learn Canadian French or not. But regardless, you do have these options. So notice it's broken up into two different segments. You have languages and countries. You have questions about English, French, and Spanish, or you have questions about France, Spain, and United States. I think that's really interesting, and I really like this a lot. The purpose of HiNative is supposed to be a question and answer app. So theoretically, you ask and answer questions about different countries and different languages, right? So I'm going to do questions about English. I don't really like this section personally for, answering questions, because, you have people, you see right here, how do you say chef in English? Like, y'all, there are better options for that. There are translators. I have an entire YouTube video just on translators, link below in the description for that. It's a much better way for you to find out simple translations like this. And I don't know, if you'd like to use HiNative for that, that's fine. I guess there's nothing wrong with that, right? But I just feel like that, HiNative is better used for other things. So you scroll down and you answer things like, does this sound natural? I really like to share dine with my family. Obviously, that doesn't make sense. You open up the question and you can select if it sounds natural, a little unnatural, or I don't understand at all, which is really helpful for learning to express yourself in the foreign language. You have a couple answers. First one, unnatural. Corrected it to, I really enjoy eating with your family, which is incorrect because it should be with my family. And this one is, I really like to share dinner with my family. I'm gonna thumbs this one up because that one makes more sense. You get the general idea that, people can express themselves and get corrections with that, which is helpful. Like I said, you get translation requests, stuff like that. Not really what I think that HiNative is best for. I generally like to stay away from questions about English, French, and Spanish because, there are some helpful questions about nuance, like, two words that are very similar and easy for native speakers to understand the difference between, but when you're learning the language for the first time, those very small differences can be really difficult. I do recommend HiNative for that kind of stuff, but my favorite reason to use HiNative is for questions about countries. So let's go to questions about United States. here you'll have questions like, let's see. What do American citizens think about international marriage? In Japan, it depends on the foreign social status and the nationality. How many states are there in America? What kind of topic would you recommend choosing when I talk to American when I meet for the first time? These are really great cultural questions that it's kind of hard to ask them other places. What is the thing marked up in the picture called? Is it popular in the US? I've never seen it in my country, but I often see it on Instagram and such from the US. Right, so it's like a Halloween costume, right? Let's see. It looks like an inflatable, something you have to blow into like a balloon. Unicorn to me, and maybe someone in costume though. Thank you, so it does not have a specific name. You can call it an inflatable. Thanks again, you're welcome. An inflatable costume. It's an inflatable costume of a unicorn, which is a mythical horse with a single horn. Oh yeah, it didn't occur to me that the question might have been about the creature, not the object. If you can find it, you should watch the film The Last Unicorn. It's really good. I meant the object, not unicorn, but thank you. So this is a really great example of a conversation coming from, different sides, different cultures where, oh, are you talking about the animal? Are you talking about the object? What are you talking about? It's an inflatable costume. You can talk about what the costume was, what it's for. Here's an example of a unicorn in culture. It's a really excellent opportunity to share cultures and learn about other cultures in a welcome, friendly way with a bunch of people who just want to share and learn about cultures. And I love that. Culture is one of my favorite parts of learning a language. So now we can see the difference between asking about a language and asking about a country. Both are very, very valid things. As long as you're not using HiNative to ask about simple translations, use a translator. Like at the very least, you got Google Translate. Use it. Come on, just put a little bit of effort in. Come on. So what happens when you ask a question? Because when you get started on HiNative, the first thing it'll do is prompt you to ask a question. And that kind of turned me off for a while because I didn't have any questions to ask. I just wanted to see around other people's questions. So let's click ask. Well, HiNative is really cool in that it makes it really easy to ask questions. So instead of having to figure out how to ask your question, which can be a really hard thing to do, especially if you're talking to a group of people who speak another language, it can be hard to figure out how do you say this, how do you pronounce that kind of thing. That's vocabulary in itself. So HiNative, fortunately, what it does is it gives you question templates. And these are separated by grammar vocab, pronunciation, or ask freely. How do you say this? Does this sound natural? What does this mean? What's the difference? Please show me examples with Ask about pronunciation, and then you can either share an audio recording of you pronouncing something, or I've definitely answered questions where people have said, how do you pronounce this? I've submitted an audio recording of me saying it with my native American English accent, and it's been great. It's been a real help. You could use Forvo for that, but it is what it is. If you don't know what Forvo is, or Forvo isn't giving you the kind of pronunciation help you need, or like a specific sentence or a word or whatever, Forvo ain't perfect either. And then, of course, you can ask freely. Ask a question about a country or region, or ask something else. So if you just want to ask whatever you want, you can. It's great. Now, like a lot of different apps like this where there's a lot of give and take, where there's a lot of, asking other people for help, HiNative also does kind of like a economy situation kind of thing where you earn points and you use those points to ask questions. So you're just not spamming the platform with random questions that you could just translate, for example. So here we have my profile. You can see my response rate is very good, apparently, level 10. My native language is English. I've earned 63 points for that because I've answered a few questions. And you can see the questions I've asked and the questions that I've answered. So let's see the questions that I've asked. Okay, so I said, how do you say this in Spanish? And what does je vous en prie mean? Which wasn't actually the phrase. When I asked this, it became clear that that wasn't the actual phrase. I got that from, I was watching The Queen's Gambit, and the subtitles said je vous en prie, and that wasn't actually the phrase that was being said, and they corrected me, so that was nice. So I've asked a couple of questions, and it's been helpful for little one-off things. I haven't gone into really complex, philosophical questions or anything like that, but I have answered some questions. So let's go into my 12 answers. So this is one I was showing you. Please show me how to pronounce commitment. How do you pronounce commitment?
Commitment.
Easy enough, right? Did some pronunciation. What's the difference between and Probably told them there is no difference. Is it natural to say, don't you see her potential? What does that's a wrap or Monday is a wrap mean? I said, it depends on the context. For example, if you're at work and you finish your work for the day, you might say that. Monday is a wrap implies that you're done doing things for the day and now it's time to relax. So phrases that don't come naturally to people who don't speak English natively. And then I have one more question. What's the difference between shooting a film and rolling a film? I said, there's no difference, but it's more natural to say shooting a film. It's really simple things like that. What else have I answered here? What is a dog person? Which sentence do you think is better? How's the election going? What does the man arriving at home at 10 made coffee at 3 mean? And I helped this person to like say in a way that sounds less clunky and more natural, going off of what details were actually important. The actual time didn't actually matter any whatsoever to the sentence, so I helped them figure that out. What does tough mean? What's the difference between state and counties? If you're learning Spanish and you browse around the Spanish country part of this, you could get a lot of information, a lot of helpful information about like culture, different holidays, you know, what's the most important meal of the day, things like that that can really clue you into things that are not obvious enough for a lot of people to think that people who are learning the language need to be told. And then one of the helpful things for, you know, people who are just kind of lurking through these questions is when you ask a question and a bunch of people answer the question, HiNative will say like, hey, choose the answer that was right, that answered your question correctly, and then that'll show as your featured answer. I have gotten one featured answer, which that was the one that was correct, did the job. And this is really helpful, especially for, you know, if you're lurking through somebody else's questions and there are a bunch of different answers, you're not sure which one is right, then the person who asked the question can, you know, help show you which one is actually correct, which one is the most helpful, which one had the most detail to it, etc., etc., etc. And that's pretty much all there is for HiNative. It's a super simple app and website. There's really not a whole lot to it, but it can be really fun. You know, just scrolling through, learning more about the language or the countries of the language that you're learning. It's a really good opportunity for education, not only for education for yourself, but to share your knowledge about your own native country and your own culture and habits and stuff like that with other people who are learning your language. And that's a huge part of learning a language, is about sharing different kinds of lives, different thought process, different perspectives with people who live completely different lives than you. That is all I have for this video. If you ever, you know, played around with HiNative or you've never heard about it before, let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear about it. HiNative is really not one of the popular ones, I feel like. I'm not sure. Literally the only reason why I even knew about it was probably because I went back to Lang 8 and I saw that they were trying to redirect me to HiNative. I got really upset because HiNative does completely different things than Lang 8 did or does for the people who are on it. That is all I have for this video. Remember, you can find me every other Monday at my blog at crashculture.com, every Wednesday and Sunday right here on YouTube, and at my Facebook group at crashculture.com/community, where I'm giving you a lot more in-depth and personalized help with your language learning routine if you're struggling with that. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.